Hey everybody, it's Savage Lands News coming in this time with a very special episode. We have a legend in the flesh and blood community on the channel right now, the founder of Arcane Games and Events. You've seen them on YouTube, you've seen them on Twitter. Go follow them, watch their tournaments. Some of the best players are cycling through their events, and now they have their very first Battle Hardened coming up very soon. It's Justin, give him a round of applause. Hey Justin, how are you
Thank you
doing
for having
today?
me. I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. Glad to have you on the channel. I'm very excited to talk about all of the things that you guys have going on over there at Arcane. So, before we start off, like I said, go to their YouTube channel. Some of the best flesh and blood content out there right now. Click subscribe, click like, and then go to Twitter and you follow them. You do that right now. And when you're done, you come
In
back.
that order.
In that order, right now. Okay. So, Justin, before we get into Arcana Games and events and all that kind of stuff, I wanted to start off just talking to you as a player, as a flesh and blood enjoyer. Uh, you want to give me the story? How did you get into this game? Like, where did it all start?
Yeah, it actually started with me watching the first Vegas one, Calling, the one that Tyler won, the
Okay.
one on Prism, and I've been kind of seeing the game on the edges. I wasn't really playing any card games at the time. I used to play Magic and kind of fell out of it, and then I saw this and it seemed kind of interesting, and the deck looked kind of interesting. I looked up some how to play videos, and then just kind of got thrown in. And my first event was really the Tales of Aria pre-release,
Oh, cool.
where I met a bunch of cool players and got to learn the game, learn how arcane damage can't be blocked by anything. Very confusing for the first time
Yes, it is.
um, in Tales of Aria. And in the last round, I met a player and I talked about, oh, I'm pretty interested in this, and he's like, oh, cool, here's some cards. Like, take this one. You'll love this card. And it's like, cool, whatever. Put it in my bag and went home. Didn't think about it. And then went home. I looked at it and he gave me an E strike.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, looked at how much it was, and I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." I'm really excited, and that like kind of kickstarted me off and kind of got me into the game.
Wow, that's cool.
So
So this is you
it was
played a
just
little bit of Magic, you said, but would this be like your
I
first
played a lot of
big?
Magic.
Oh, you played a lot of. Okay, so you've been in TCGs for a little bit. Okay, okay,
hmm
cool.
Yeah, I used to go to the Grand Prix and travel for them, and really was like in the competitive scene for it.
Okay,
So I was kind of looking for something to scratch that itch again eventually.
yeah. Flesh and Blood is the right game for that, for sure, for sure. This is a
Yeah.
good competitive game. So, who in Flesh and Blood would you say your main is? What's your favorite hero in the game so far?
Currently, right now, it is Dromai.
Oh,
So love playing Dromai. Love watching people fight about Dromai, argue about Dromai.
they do. Illusionist
It's
players love to argue. They do.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't notice, so I stay back. I just let everyone do it. But one of our commentators, Blake, jokes it's like it takes like a couple weeks to get used to Dromai, and then 8 months to build up the ego to feel like your hero's better than everybody else. So
It's- that is the natural progression. Honestly,
yeah,
you nailed it, or they nailed it.
so I'm getting there. I'm working towards it.
Yeah, a couple more months, you're just gonna be bragging about how your hero's the best in the game. Prism 2 will come out. We're gonna see
It
how
never
many draw my.
stopped, bragging about it. So even when it was terrible.
It's true. And so what's been your favorite set or favorite moment in Flesh and Blood as a player so far?
I think Uprising was definitely, I think, one of my favorite sets. Not so much for obviously like Dromai came out in
Yeah.
it, but I think what it did for the game
Hmm.
because I felt like one of the sets that this is one you can jump into completely fresh and have a really smooth time building a deck.
I agree.
So
Yeah.
like Fi and Dromai, it's like it was just kind of like a complete package almost with all the equipment and all the cards you needed. They were kind of all complete almost. Like got you like 90% of the way there
Yeah.
for a new player. And I knew a bunch of players that were just like coming in at that time, and I told them just go in for Uprising, play Fi, Dromai, Icelander, and just kind of pick there, and then our equipment's in the box. You can kind of get it and pick it up from there. So it was really a nice time to introduce new players to the game, I think.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that. I didn't think about that aspect of like, you're right, those two heroes are kind of there and they're done. Almost all their cards exist in that
Mhm.
set entirely. That's a really cool point.
Mhm.
It's also one of my favorite sets to open. there's so many shiny
Yeah.
things in those boxes. Like even at the end of the day, they're all worth like barely anything. But the fun of opening so many marvels and shiny things and chase cards. Yeah, I loved opening
Yeah.
that set.
Somehow it doesn't feel bad to open Uprising ever.
No, it never does because there's just so much cool stuff in it, and there's like so many marvels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you, yeah. Are you looking for
Yeah.
anything? So for the future of Flesh and Blood, is there any particular area in the game that you want to go to? Any maybe classes that you're really looking forward to them trying out? Like, what do you really want to see next?
Um, I think now with Oldham gone, I think my favorite classes are always like the incremental value. Let's play a long game.
Mm,
Let's pitch that and kind of work towards something. And I think having more heroes that kind of reward players for wanting to do that is always a cool place to be. Not like necessarily fatigue where you're just trying to grind the game down, but like make a bunch of interesting and tough decisions throughout the game where it's like when you think back, it's like, oh, I should have done that, or I could have done this
yeah,
better, and I could have gained some edges. And I think that's where Flesh and Blood is really at its finest, is when you get to do that kind of stuff. Like
yeah,
with the new draft set, it's like people are really enjoying it, I think, because you get to have these long games and see your second cycle, third cycle, and
mm,
plan these games out. And so I think any hero that can do that is always going to be one that I'm going to probably gravitate to or just be interested in. And I think a lot of players will like it too.
yeah. I think that is the best. My favorite part about Flesh and Blood is exactly what you described. Right. I don't really love games where I get blown out or you find three of your
Mm-hmm.
power cards and it all ends too fast. It's always those games where it's like, man, I let one damage go through on that one turn that I shouldn't have, and I lost three damage
Yeah.
on my one attack that I should have done better, and then you can see the game. I love games where I win by one or two health. You know what I mean? Those are so
Mm-hmm.
fun.
And then there's the Rain Razor's three of a kind turns, and we just don't talk about those. So
Yeah, Rain Razors, Three of a Kind, Force of Nature, Briar, blah blah blah. There's a couple heroes when they win, I don't really enjoy it.
yeah, but it's every hero has its place, and I think the play style is that it's good to reward like different mindsets and play styles in the game too.
Agreed.
So I
Yeah,
don't hate seeing it. I'll just
yeah.
complain about it privately.
Yeah, I'll go privately on the YouTubes. um, so as somebody who's deeply involved in Flesh and Blood, can you share your thoughts on the future? Like, how do you see the game evolving over time? Especially somebody who came from Magic, right? You saw a game go on for a very long time. This is my first TCG, so every time they come up with a new mechanic, I'm like, my mind's blown. But how do you see it
Yeah.
evolving?
Well, I think with competitive FAB, because that's the part I'm paying attention the most right now, is I think it's an interesting spot because this year there's only one Pro Tour. And I think last year the feedback that was given was that there was a crazy event schedule towards the end
Yeah.
of last year, right? Where it was just like, felt like every week there's something new going on. But I think what it really was is that everything was kind of crammed too close together. Not that the amount of events were wrong, it's just the spacing of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think with competitive Flesh and Blood now, there's um, definitely just a pullback, I think, this year from LSS to kind of figure out stuff and reorg themselves. But I think there's a banner being like held up by the community of just independent circuits. Like what we're doing on the West Coast, there's a bunch on the East Coast, and people just trying to make stuff happen with their community.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the mentality of we're not going to wait for stuff to fill the gaps, we're just going to do it ourselves, which I think Flesh and Blood is really one of the more proactive communities about making stuff happen because it is really small and you can kind of mobilize an entire community with you, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, I really like that point. Kind of like the FGC community, the fighting game community, right? Like, it is
Mm-hmm.
starting to kind of get that feel where you've got your East Coast events, your West Coast events, your Central events, and now there's like little local
Mm-hmm.
tournaments and little local scenes, local competitive players, and we might even start seeing those
Yeah.
kind of travel across to play against each other. Yeah, that's cool. What do you
Yeah.
think of
It
like the
does feel
flesh?
like Smash a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, it kind of is a lot like Smash. Yeah, it's turning into that. Maybe not yet, but it's
Mm-hmm.
getting there. Right. As somebody who hosts a lot of regular events, what do you think about the release schedule? Do you think the sets are coming out too fast, too slow? What do you think?
Yeah, I think right now we're actually, I think at a pretty good clip because I think it's always nice to have more,
Mm-hmm.
but you want to make sure that the quality remains high. And it's really hard to make these sets and test them and have that breathing room internally. So I totally get it, and just like giving them time and space to kind of work on the best products and make sure they come out, you know, well oiled and tested, and you know that's something that they're confident in.
Mhm.
But for me, I think the perfect cadence of set releases is something where you have 3 draftable sets a year, and kind of model a little what MTG did before with their Pro Tour, where it would be a set comes out and then maybe like 2 to 3 weeks later the Pro Tour happens.
Oh,
And that kind of builds up a lot of hype for the set because it comes out and then the pros go in and test, make decks, practice drafting, and then the Pro Tour is kind of like the big coming out party where the brand new list comes out and everyone's watching to see what all the people are playing and what new tech comes
oh,
out, and kind of promoting the set and getting eyes on it. And like that was always the best time for me in Magic. Is I would never qualify for the Pro Tour, but we would have friends and we would just go together to like a house for a weekend and watch the Pro Tour, buy a
mhm.
bunch of booster sets, draft, you know, build decks, play throughout the weekend, and just treat it like, you know, like a pre-release party that's interesting for a whole weekend.
Yeah, it's like Super Bowl almost.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. Um, yeah, I never really thought because again, my first TCG, so I don't, all of this stuff is kind of
Hmm.
evolving, and I'm just going with it. So I really do like that idea though. Like a new set comes out, huge event, right? Big tournament. Let's see what the pros can figure
Yeah.
out. See some new decks, some new tech that people didn't really because a lot of the time, I guess it is kind of true. Like the big event it comes, but the set's been out for so long, like we know all the lists
Yeah.
typically, right? Like we had
Hmm.
just enough time to find most of the lists, right? Interesting.
Yeah,
I
and
like
then
that
some
idea.
do take time to evolve. Like Icelander from Uprising to Worlds was completely different.
Yeah.
But I think if it was like, you know, with like Uprising when it came out and there's a Pro Tour meeting, it's like, I wonder what Dromai is going to look like. How
Yeah.
are they going to build him?
Yeah.
You know, and it's even up to this day, there's like Dromai is still changing, which is
Mhm.
really cool.
Yeah.
You have like Mara's list and you have Yuha's list from the Pro Tour and all the different variations. So there's always still stuff happening, but I think it's cool to get that one big burst of exposure to the set.
Yeah.
You know, where you see like there's just cool things happening left and right, and all these deck lists are brand new. Because for the last Pro Tour, it was the Realm event and then the AGE event.
Mhm.
We didn't really have too many new decks because we came out after release, but the Realm did have the Azalea kind of have its coming out party,
That's
right?
true.
And Codex has had its coming out party, and that's kind of what it felt like. If we could move the Pro Tour closer, that would
Mhm.
have been cooler at a Pro Tour level, you know?
That's true. Yeah. Cause yeah, that was yeah. I remember watching both of those events, right? And I was like just looking, and then
Mhm.
Azalea showed up, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is so good!" He
Yeah.
just took down Michael Hamilton. Yeah, uh, it was kind of crazy. Uh, so are you excited to have some West Coast events finally? I mean, I know you guys are down in California. I'm up in Washington. It has felt a little barren. My wallet has been hurting for a while, hitting all of these East Coast events. Are you pumped to see the
Mhm.
West Coast circuit kind of form?
Yeah, I'm really excited for it, but I understand why the West Coast has been a little more barren because there's a lot of factors that go into running an event on the West Coast, which is, I think, the surprising one, which a lot of people don't expect, is attendance. Attendance is usually a little bit lower on the West Coast for a
Oh,
lot of events, and we saw it even in Magic and a bunch of different card games outside of like really major events.
hmm,
And I think it's just because of this, we're all kind of spread out.
okay.
Um, but and it's always costs that go with it too, where you know things are a little more expensive in LA, San Francisco, San Diego, and you kind of get that, you know, to factor in. But I'm excited to bring more events out here, and even just run our own, which the AGE Open and
Hmm.
you know Battleheart coming soon, and then now we have SCG bringing nationals out here to Vegas. So I think it's going to start opening up again, and people are going to figure it out and make it work. And you know, it just takes some time, I think, with
Yeah,
it, and getting more TOs and people who want to run events is, I think, the big thing too.
yeah. Give me some Seattle and Portland events, please.
Working on it. I mean, hearing stuff is always going on up there, so
Yeah.
there's probably sooner than later,
I hope so.
hopefully.
Hopefully. All right. So, so what inspired you in general to start a company revolving around this game, right? Like what was the point in time where you're like, I should become a tournament organizer and a streaming company, right? Like where did that come from?
Like most things, it actually never started that way.
Hmm.
It actually started from a more selfish place, where when I first got into Flesh and Blood, it was just like man, I really want to learn the streaming stuff, like just for
Mm.
myself to just figure it out and try it out and see what happens. And to do that, we started running like little small tournaments in the LA area of just see people show up and just kind of start something just to kind of put all these pieces together. There's no real intention to do anything more than just learning and maybe having a little hobby to stream these events.
Mm.
And then we started this circuit called the So Calling Circuit, or a series where we had the first one during nationals in Orlando. So the players who couldn't go were like, "Hey, just come for the weekend, just hang out, we'll play some games, have a tournament, enter, get some store credit, and just play for the weekend and celebrate the game."
Mm.
And we had a bunch of people show up for it, which was really cool. And we got to experiment, and I got to learn how to do the streaming. We didn't have commentators; it was just a webcam over, worked on overlays, and it was kind of just that starting as like the conception of the idea of I just want to learn how to stream myself.
Yeah.
And then we did another one, and we reached out to LSS to be like, "Hey, can we get like extra armor kits just so we can give them away and stuff?" And kind of getting aligned to their team. And after a couple, they reached out to us and they're like, "Hey, do you want to run Battle Harden?"
Hmm.
And I was like, "Sure, why not? It seems interesting," because we've been talking to them at least, and I think they were looking to bring something on the West Coast, and
Mm-hmm.
I guess it seemed pretty natural for them to extend it to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the phone call with them, or the meeting with them. They offered to us. And we're like, "Yeah, sure, we could do it." Hung up, and I looked at my friend and we're like, "This is crazy. This is why did we say yes to this?" But that's kind of how it started. And AGE was started because we got the Battle Hardened, so we figured, hey, let's make this official. It'll be probably easier to like start a company just to kind of like host all the finances and work through all the paperwork and contract stuff. And so I went and started that, and a year later we're doing it again. So we
Yeah.
ran technically second Battle Hardened now.
That's crazy. What have been some challenges like on the way? Anything in particular that you can remember as like a really pivotal moment that took a lot of effort to overcome?
I think it was the first Battle Hardened was really difficult to learn what to do, because you kind of know what you need to do. Like, okay, we need judges and we need a place and we need players.
Yeah.
And then realize there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes for all that to happen, right? So it's like you need judges, so you need a head judge, and you need to hire people, and you need to get staff to run the event. You need to design the floor plan. You need to get insurance for this convention center. You need to get a website where people can buy tickets. And it was like kind of putting this all together and figuring it out. And the real blessing was that we had someone at LSS who kind of met with us weekly and just talked us through this process of like, here's what you should expect, and here's how much you should pay judges, and this is kind of like the range, and this is how it works. And we talked to a bunch of people, and it was kind of overcoming that first hurdle of like, how do we actually do this? Like, what's the right way to do this? Because there's plenty of wrong ways and lots of doors you can go through that will lead you down the wrong path. But it's like, and talking to a bunch of people and bringing people in, and talking to LSS, it was like this natural process of just helping us figure it out was the hardest part. And like getting us through that initial push, and then
Yeah.
it's just a matter of experience after that.
Yeah, you really started kind of from zero. So you had to learn everything the hard way and the
Yeah.
fast way, right? That's
Mhm.
crazy. At what moment did you
Yeah,
realize you were going to succeed, right?
yeah. I think the moment that I realized this was gonna at least work to some degree was after Battle Harden was over,
Mm-hmm.
because all the attendees left and we just were in the hall cleaning up, and I just realized there's all these people here helping put this on, just for even volunteering their time.
Mm-hmm.
We had friends and the judge staff and a bunch of the people I knew that I just asked to come help for the weekend for no money, and trying to figure this out, just trying to make it work, right? We were just kind of bootstrapping, and we kind of still are. But looking around and just kind of taking a breather after the weekend and staring at all the people, just kind of who made this all happen,
That's
means that
cool.
there's a desire for people who want more events like this to happen.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what motivates me to still keep going, and seeing all the players who came out and enjoyed it. And we had some fire alarm pulled during the last Battle Harden, and there's a bunch of different things going on that you never expect, but people were still like, at the end of the day, they're like, "Thanks for putting it on. I hope you get another one next year." And
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that keeps it going. And makes me realize there's probably something there's to keep working towards.
That's really cool. I like that. That was a really nice answer, to be honest. um, so what has been like the most rewarding thing that you've gained out of all of this, right? The streaming, the events, the online events, the actual battle hardens from LSS. Like, what is the most rewarding thing for you as the founder?
I think, yeah, there's a lot of different things for me personally, and also for AGE, and it's mostly just the people I meet,
Hmm.
and interacting with Flesh and Blood. Like I went to Baltimore, and we went out to dinner. It was like 10 of us or something like that. And I looked around. I'm like, I didn't know any of these people like a year ago,
Yeah.
and now we're flying to the same place, staying in those same hotel rooms, getting dinners, and checking up on each other, and are really just really good friends now. And I think card games are really unique in that aspect of
Hmm.
you'll sit down across from a person and try your hardest to beat them. Like you'll look them straight in the face and try and find every edge you can to try and win the game. And then after, it's like you just talk and hang out. But I don't think there's anything really like that where you sit down and stare at a person for like an hour and interact with them and compete against them. And it's kind of like an intimate moment where you're just like just in that space together for that hour, and then you move on to the next one. And I think that builds like really strong relationships and friendships that I haven't really found in a lot of different places.
Yeah. That's really true. Like over the last, I don't know, year and a half that I've been playing, like my friend circle is massive now, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
all the way up on the west coast here, the like Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, Canada, down to like mid Oregon. I know every single one of them at every event. We all walk in the room. We all know each other. We all like each other. And then you go to places like Port or oh no, Chicago, not Chicago, but you go across the continent to a major event, and then you suddenly know like 100 people, right? You get
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy. And I never had an experience like this before. I played sports before, and I never like ended up caring what my opponents were doing. You know what I mean? Like,
You never went to dinner with your opponents.
no, I never went to dinner with my opponent. I never hung out with my opponent after the game. You know what I mean? I never traveled
Mm-hmm.
or stayed in a hotel with my opponent. It's so weird. That's cool. I really like that
Mm-hmm.
answer. So, another major part of AGE, aside from hosting these kind of big events, is your streaming schedules, right? Your independent events that you guys host. So now that you've streamed so many events, can you give me some insights, or the viewers at home some insights on your thought process of like what really makes a successful and engaging stream?
Yeah, I think organized play. I think streaming is probably one of the most important parts of it.
Hmm.
Obviously, other than managing and structuring organized play, I think when I think about it, there's two parts to having a successful OP program for any game, really, and that's you need a summit, and then you need to have a view of the people climbing it.
Okay.
And when you put those two together, it makes people like really invested into the game and want to compete in the game, even if they have sometimes no desire to play in like the highest levels. It's like there's still that draw to kind of like go after it.
Hmm.
And in a lot of ways, it's like sports. Going back to the sports analogy again, it's when we watch the really good players in our game play, they play for our favorite team, or in this case, heroes.
Hmm.
And so we latch onto it. So it's like if you're an Icelander player, you're going to follow Michael Hamilton.
Yeah.
you know, like if you're a Bravo player, you go Kale McCreath.
Yep.
And it's like their deck lists are almost like their jerseys that you take with you
Oh, that's cool.
because you're kind of representing, the person that you love to watch and play and your hero itself. So it's like you're part of a team when you're part of a hero, when you play your
Yeah.
hero class. And so having a view of the people who are playing at the highest levels and having a great experience of watching them and have people commentating over them and giving context to the game, I think is what gives like life to organized play.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it's just a deck list on a website that
Yeah.
happens in a place that you never see, right?
Yeah.
So there's that tie-in story to it, and you're building this image of the game and what you want to see it be, and you want to participate in part of it. So I think that's why streaming is really really important
Hmm.
and something that we try to focus on with AGE and like our opens and our bigger events is because putting those two together makes something I think really important to the most casual player to the highest level competitor.
Yeah, that was a really eloquent answer. I like that answer a lot. Do you have any like for other people out there, any kind of like rule books that you follow to create an engaging stream, or any like rules that you kind of enforced, anything along those lines?
Yeah, so with our broadcasting team, we like to really just talk about how we present matches.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what a lot of people think like broadcasting or casting games is you sit down, you turn on the microphone and the camera, and then you just start talking. But to us, we try to be more methodical about it because it's
Okay.
kind of easy just to do that kind of thing. And so when we think about broadcasting, it's like a broadcast should be, above all, we think easy to watch,
Mm-hmm.
which sounds a little weird, but it should be, fun and engaging. And to us, our perfect stream is like one that you can listen to and not watch,
Mm.
which is you can kind of look away and enjoy it and just be entertained still by just having the stream on.
Yeah.
And one of the things we joke about is that everyone who watches our stream is folding laundry at the same time. And that's how most people, probably process streams on a weekend. They're just at home
Yeah.
relaxing and they have the screen on and they'll just kind of look back and forth. And you're trying to engage that kind of audience.
Yeah.
Because when you think about broadcasting, you're not competing against other streams or other people. You're competing against YouTube,
Yeah.
Netflix, Hulu, the NBA game, football game going on. And you need to be cognizant that people are going to spend their time doing this, so you have to make it worthwhile.
Hmm.
And so when we think about a game as from the caster's perspective, it's like we're not explaining what happens from turn to turn. We're trying to explain how a player's trying to win the game
Yeah.
and getting an audience invested into the problem that the individual players are having instead of the cards that they're playing. And so it kind of builds this like nice narrative throughout the game. Like when you watch a basketball game, it's like they don't commentate, I hope he shoots a three, and he shoots a three, he shot a three, he makes a three. They're gonna go down the other side, they're gonna shoot a two, make a two. It's like, okay, how are they gonna guard this person? How is this person gonna execute their game plan? And it's like they do all that little stuff.
Yeah.
And so when we think about the broadcast, there's all these like pieces that we try to improve upon and make engaging for the audience.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really well put. Yeah, I like the idea of, you're not just giving a play by play, but you're creating like a journey or an experience, right? Kind of leading the audience down a path. Um, yeah, that's a really good idea, and it's true. A lot of the time when people watch streams, right, you're not giving it 100%. You're not watching an 8-hour stream 100% focused. You know what I mean? A lot
Mm-hmm.
of the time you're either skipping around or you're doing something around the house. So
Yeah,
that's
and
yeah,
it's
that's really cool.
especially tougher with Flesh and Blood because, like, unlike most card games, Flesh and Blood starts right away. The games from the first hand all the way to the last hand, there's always something going on. Like with Magic and other card games, there's a ramp up,
Hmm.
right? So the casters can have a little bit of a break. They
Hmm.
can kind of talk about different things as like players pass back and forth. They kind of ramp up to the meat of the game.
Hmm.
Where Flesh and Blood, it's like it starts at like 70% and it works its way to 100%.
Yeah.
And so that's the tough part about casting and commentating over this is that you can miss things sometimes, and you can't. If you jump into a match mid game, it's like you should just play, or people feel like they should just go from the beginning,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's
So
true.
it's hard to jump in and just kind of see where the meat and potatoes of the game are, but there's a lot of different ways to approach it, and I think you know
Yeah.
it's a work in progress.
Yeah. And there's a lot of heroes where if you jump in halfway through and you see a life total of like 30 to 10, you're like, what happened? You know what I mean? Like, there's no way this
Mm-hmm.
is something crazy happened, right? You have to go back. Huh. So I think we touched on this a little bit, but you guys have another Battle Hardened coming up. Battle Hardened Pasadena. I actually lived in Pasadena for quite a long time, actually. Um,
City
could you
Road.
give us some insider information on what it really takes to host a tournament of this size? Right, I'm sure there's a lot of interesting things that you have to go through, and I mean, just getting like you said earlier, getting a insurance to host this in Pasadena is like a step you wouldn't even consider. But is there anything like particularly interesting that you want us to think about?
I think when it comes to running bigger events like Battle Hardens and callings are a different step up, nationals and pro tours and worlds. It's there's tiers to it. I think with events like these, it's just the amount of like manpower that makes it happen.
Mhm.
Where there's the judges, the staff, even down to getting your website going, getting your
Yeah.
tickets, on there and doing the marketing and telling people where to park and all these different things. And that's something I care a lot about.
Mhm.
Like my biggest complaints for a lot of different events, not even card game specifics. It's just like you go to the website and there's no information. Where
Yeah.
do I park? Where do I go eat after? Where do I stay? And what's the schedule like? And hopefully, like with our website, we try and focus on that to make it easy for the player.
Mhm.
Because there's just nothing more like anxiety inducing of like, I guess I'm just going to figure out parking when I get there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
And I'm just going to roll the dice and see if my car gets towed or something like that. If you're at a big venue or you go anywhere. And I
Yeah.
think trying to focus on the small stuff.
Okay.
Because it's really easy to just put a ticketing website, you can buy a ticket, and then you'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
We'll send you an email about what's going to happen. And like, great, I'm going to pay for this ticket, spend time, take vacation away from work, and just go down and hope that it's a good weekend.
Yeah.
Like, I'm hoping that when people come to any event we run, even if it's Battle Hardened or Open Series, it's the logistics of how you're going to get there and how you're going to play in the tournament are the last things in your mind. Like, you should have taken care of that like way before when you bought your ticket. So now you focus on what deck do I want to bring? Who am I going to see? Where am I going to get food after? Who am I going to hang out with? And it's like,
Mhm.
that's the best parts of an event
Yeah.
to me. And so if you can remove as much of that as possible, that's what makes a really good event.
Yeah.
It's regardless of how you do or what, happens during it. It's just like when you set foot on the ground and you get out of your car, plane or whatever, and you
Mhm.
get to the event, it's like, I can just focus on the whole having fun for this game.
Yeah. That's really, yeah, that was really insightful. I like that. I like the thought and effort you guys put in. Those of you watching at home, go to age.com. I'll put the link in the description below. We'll get you the whole link. Go buy a ticket, fly to Pasadena, and support these people because there's a lot of passion coming out of Justin's mouth right now. And I think it really does show. So do you want to remind them what the date of this Battle Hardened is?
It's going to be June 24th and 25th.
June
Saturday,
24th,
Sunday.
25th. Oh, activated my Google. June 24th and 25th, Pasadena, California. It's a very nice area. Those of you who've traveled to some of these less nice cities, Pasadena is premium. It is a very nice area. So it'll be fun. Um, and you not only have Battle Hardened coming up, but I believe you guys are near your AGE Open Championships. I forget the exact name of it, but you're almost at the championships of AGE's exclusive event, right?
Yeah, so in August we have our Players Championship, which
Mm.
will be kind of the culmination of our first circuit this year. We're going to have the top 16 players who have points in our events basically get into a free 3K event.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
that's going to be, competing for a weekend, streaming, commentating, and we're going to have dinner with all the players and, just have a nice, day of flesh and blood and competing. And I think it's going to be really fun and rewarding a lot of players who came to the circuits and did really well and are fighting for those spots. And we do have 2 more events left. So we have one during the Battle Hardened weekend and then in July.
Hmm.
And if you win, you're probably in. You probably get a spot because first place is 30 points. And right now, I think 16th is 23.
Oh,
So, there's still a lot of room to fight for one of the last spots. And it's going to be a really, really fun event. And I think we're going to get to see some really interesting games. And we're going to figure out the format and announce it soon. So,
I can't wait to see the long-haired, cran-wielding, dice-throwing, bauble-wielding titanium monster crush your top 16. Can't wait.
he's going to be there and he's going to be doing something. I've been talking to him and he's been working on some interesting decks. So,
That's fun.
I'm excited to see what everyone brings. We have Craig, who's our resident Oldham.
Yeah.
He's going to figure out a new deck soon, so we got to figure out what's going to happen with that.
Oh, the meta's gonna go crazy with Oldhim gone. I have so many predictions I want to make, but we'll save that for another video. um,
Yeah,
Yeah. So you've got the AGE Open. I think you have 2 rounds left. Then you've got your championships. You've got the Battle Hardened coming up. You guys are busy and moving, right? What for you is the next goal for AGE? Like what are you setting your eyes on next?
Yeah, so as soon as our Players' Championship is over, we're going to move into the fall where it's going to be a retooling period for AGE where we're going to figure out, what worked and what didn't and how to grow the circuit.
Hmm.
And so we want to reach out to different communities and start expanding AGE to not just be our open series, but a lot of different invitational events, like at a store level where they can get points at weekend events or something like an armory.
Hmm.
And so we're kind of retooling that, and we're going to get a lot of different things going, like articles and more videos. And
Hmm.
in the fall, one of the things we're excited about, which we heard a lot of feedback for, was team tournaments.
I would love to do a team tournament.
And so we've heard a lot of interest of especially regional team tournaments, like we'll bring our best San Diego people down to LA, and then there's San Francisco and Arizona and
Hmm.
Vegas, and then having like a crew battle or something like that,
That'd be cool.
and taking some bragging rights away.
Yeah,
And who's the best West Coast team? I
yeah.
think is what people are interested in. But yeah, a lot of different tournaments like that, and experimenting with different formats. So like team sealed, draft, limited events, and kind of expanding past that to see how we can, entertain the player base and see like, what they want and want to do, especially post Worlds, where there's really kind of like that, relaxing period after Worlds where nothing's really happening. So we want to
Mhm.
kind of take the mantle and do some tournaments in between that.
Yeah, that's really cool. That sounds really exciting. I can't wait to see all of this unfold. It's gonna be fun. And best
Mm-hmm.
West Coast teams. You didn't mention anybody from Portland, Seattle, Vancouver on your list there. So maybe we're gonna have to.
Well, I heard there's a coalition of people coming down from the Pacific Northwest to Battle Harden, so I
I'm
know
gonna
there's going to
take
be
it.
some tough competition.
I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna beat everybody down there with a D tier deck, and I'm gonna love every moment of it.
You and Alan in the finals, streaming, rolling dice at each other.
We already made that agreement. If we're gonna hit the finals, and we're only gonna roll every turn for the entire game. We already agreed on this.
You get some nice living legend points for Reinar on the board.
Yeah. Yep. He does. I hope not. Actually, I'm gonna fold. I never want to get him living legend. No, no,
Just
no.
stop right before, but say I could have won. So I just want to
Yeah,
let you guys know.
exactly. I'm gonna get finals, and I'm just gonna never attack.
Yeah. Or you could
Uh,
do what Alan did during our last open, which was roll 3 1s in a row, and
yep.
and to say just I'm good for today.
Sometimes
That
that
was
happens. Sometimes it happened to me
yeah.
yesterday, actually, legitimately at my RTN. But that's okay.
Just get him out of the way before Battle Harden.
Exactly. Yeah, get them out of the way. These small events. So everybody at home, one more time, go follow Arcane Games and Events on YouTube. Go follow them on Twitter. Pay attention to their circuits. They have some really, really, really good content. Participate if you're in their local area. Uh, Try and qualify for their championship because there's quite a bit of money on the table. Some in if you participate in a lot of these events. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Justin. This was a lot of fun. You had really insightful like opinions and a lot of learnings that you've gone through that you just shared with the community out there. Uh, I learned a lot, and I thought it was a lot of fun having you on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody at home. Have a great day. We'll see you around.